Let's talk about it. You just started, bro. How is it already? All right. On July 4th, 2026, Americans will remember how the Founding Fathers won their freedom and established ordered liberty through a system of limited government, federalism, and the rule of law. In understanding their crowning achievement, Americans must recognize that the Founding Fathers were quite literally fathers. Oh, starting off strong, aren't we? 54 of the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence married and had a total of 337 children among them, an average of 6 each. Can you see where this is going? All right, let's keep going. Alongside the decline in American marriage has come an even more precipitous drop in fertility. Well, if you'd quit poisoning the food and everything else that we use on a regular basis, maybe fertility wouldn't be the issue. Cleaning products, deodorant, perfume, fragrances, all disrupt your hormones and affect your fertility. And then we go right into blaming women. Of course we do. The disruptions to American family life caused by bad public policy in the 1960s were exacerbated by cultural upheavals that radically changed social norms around sex, sexuality, marriage, children, and gender roles. Second-wave feminism and the sexual revolution promoted an individualistic, child-free, marriage-free sexual liberation that promised to lead to an unparalleled era of consent-based human happiness and fulfillment. Over the course of 60 years, casual sex, abortion, childlessness by choice, and no-fault divorce became normalized, while marriage and the natural family became stigmatized. So women started to reclaim their bodies and their pleasure, stepped into empowered autonomy, were able to leave abusive and toxic marriages, and started to think for ourselves about whether or not having children is the right choice for us, and came together to decenter men and prioritize ourselves and our happiness, and we're the problem. Right. By 2024, the decline in... Sorry, this is just really funny. Children brought into the world hit a record low of 1.59 lifetime births per woman, which is far below the 2.1 required for a population to replace itself. 2.1? What is that? How do you even... Moving on. I had to put my hair up for this because until recently, virtually all cultures recognize that marriage has a special connection to the bearing and raising of children, even if some marriages do not give rise to children. Children are a proper end of marriage. If I don't think that did what you thought it was going to. All things being equal, children should be raised in a stable home by their married mother and father. These are not sectarian claims. Historically, virtually all known cultures have an institution that one call marriage, involving a man and a woman. Even in the case of polygamy, the spousal relationship is between a male and one or more females. But you know that's not always. Sometimes it's a woman and some guys. 3:33 on the timer. And we go back to blaming it on women. No-fault divorce laws became nearly universal and divorce rates skyrocketed. Even when the divorce rate leveled off from its peak, it was largely explained by the fact that fewer people bothered to get married. Meanwhile, despite wide access to contraception, non-marital birth and abortion became ever more jointly common, especially following Roe v. Wade. And it continues. A large share of the blame for the present malady lies in moral and cultural trends that have both fed and been fed by government policy. Chief among these is surely the sexual revolution, which separated the sex act from marriage and childbearing. Starting in the 1960s, the pill and other contraceptives swept the country, which promised to reduce the unwanted consequences of casual sex with multiple partners across a lifetime. That is not why women decided to get on birth control in the 1960s. Women were getting on birth control in the 1960s because they were married to abusive husbands that they were unable to divorce and forced to continue to have children that they didn't want or were unable to afford. That is what the majority of women were getting on birth control for in the 1960s. Because of birth control, were women able to feel liberated enough to explore their sexual potential? Oh, like men? Because of birth control, were women able to start experiencing pleasure without the fear of pregnancy? Yes. But the goal was never having casual sex with multiple partners across a lifetime. That has never been the point of birth control, or why it swept the country. Let's continue. This is like a 160-page something document, so definitely take a look for yourself. Many of the past incentives to have large families are gone. For instance, far fewer Americans live and work on farms in 2025 than they did in 1825 or 1925. Because y'all don't value farmers, but we're not going to talk about that. Few married couples now think of the labor potential of children, which confirms the theory that the government wants you to have children for the purpose of labor. And this suggests, I just think it's an interesting choice of words. Couples who marry earlier, in their early 20s, are more fertile and tend to have more children than those who marry later. It threatens the funding of old age entitlements because there are far fewer workers to support an ever-growing cohort of retirees. When you have a child, it is a ward of the state. The only thing that the government cares about is whether or not they are going to work. Not their safety, not their health, not their happiness, how they're going to make the government more money. This is really interesting to me. If trends, policies, and influences led to the decline of marriage and family, then trends, policies, and influences can lead to its restoration. It appears that Americans have no other choice than to pursue this option. No other choice. Just to sum this up, American family life is truly at a crossroads. One path is marked by unwed childbearing, low rates of marriage, low fertility, low commitment, and easy divorce. This path is associated with the view that family formation, or its avoidance, is primarily about fulfilling adult desires and adult needs. The other path elevates the family unit as an inherent good based on the commitment and sacrifice of husbands and wives for each other's sake and for the sake of the children that their union would welcome into the world. This path is associated with the view that all life is sacred and that sees the family as a source of fulfillment for adults because they direct their energies to the good of the family unit instead of to themselves. Underlying this view is a deep sense of gratitude in knowing that human beings are here by God's grace and that children are divine gifts. So not only are we blaming women for having authority over our own bodies, utilizing our right to choice, and deepening our connection to our bodies and our pleasure, which is our God-given birthright, we're also shoving Christianity down the throats of everyone, which is not very separation of church and state of you. You're basically wanting to force women to be in marriages, forcing women to bear children. You're romanticizing men having multiple children by multiple women, demonizing women for having children unwed. If the family was really the important thing here, then there wouldn't be so many lonely men. The male loneliness epidemic. That was even suggested in this, that marriage is the cure for the male loneliness epidemic. Of course it is, because men are going to siphon the energy of women regardless. So why not do it in a union where you're legally bound? But he's allowed to go have multiple children by multiple women, but is still expected to be married? And then you also mentioned polygamy, which is kind of cult-like, right? And only suggest that it's a man and more than one woman? I don't know. Y'all tell me your thoughts if you made it this far. That was just a roller coaster of what the fuck. Things are about to get real crazy, and it sounds like they might be trying to birth control. There is a natural way to prevent pregnancy by tuning into your body. I can teach you how to do that. So subscribe to my YouTube. I'll be doing some classes on there. And to all my ladies, stay safe out there, girl. Your body, your choice. Always.